My husband cheated on me with my son's 18-year-old girlfriend. That sentence alone feels surreal, like something ripped from the pages of a scandalous novel. But this is my life, a horrifying, twisted reality. For clarity, I'll use pseudonyms. I'm a 41-year-old stay-at-home mom. My husband, Paul, is 48 and works in finance. We've been married for nearly 20 years and have two incredible kids, Eric, our 18-year-old son, and Mary, our 15-year-old daughter. They are my everything, the lights that guide me through life's darkest days. Paul and I have had our struggles. Time has worn down the excitement that once defined our marriage, and his grueling work schedule didn't help. I know I've changed since we met. I've aged, lost some of the youthful energy I used to have. But I always believed that love, real love, could weather these storms. Eric has been dating Amy since their freshman year of high school. She's been a fixture in our home, a part of our family. I watched them grow together, their bond deepening. Eric absolutely adores her, his first love. And until recently, I thought of her as another daughter, someone I cherished and cared for deeply. That's what makes this betrayal cut so much deeper. It all started last week when I accidentally caught a glimpse of Paul's phone screen. A single text thread between him and Amy was open, just for a moment, but long enough for me to see her message. "I miss eating your sausage," she had written. I froze. My heart raced, and my mind scrambled to convince me I'd misunderstood. But deep down, I knew. The rest of the day, I was a wreck, trying to suppress the gnawing dread that I was right. Days later, the truth came crashing down when I discovered a file on Paul's computer. It was full of BDSM content, videos, images, and forums he frequented. It was a revelation of a side of him I never knew existed. Alongside that, I found saved photos of Amy from her Instagram. Although they weren't explicit, the implications were devastating. I needed to be sure. I started watching him closely, seizing any moment to glance at his phone. Each peek revealed more of their secret world, flirtatious messages, casual cruelty, and a stream of interactions that shattered any lingering doubts. When I first stumbled across their texts, the emotional blow was like being struck by lightning. My hands trembled as I held his phone, the glow of the screen illuminating the betrayal etched in their words. They didn't just hurt me, they mocked me. The insecurities I had confided in Paul, my fears, and vulnerabilities, had been twisted into jokes. Paul compared me to Amy in the most degrading ways, calling me fat, old, and boring. Amy laughed, her replies peppered with emojis and casual cruelty. "Can you believe she tried to wear that dress last night?" Paul had written. "Looked like a sausage bursting out of its casing." Amy replied with laughing emojis, adding, "She probably thinks it's still in style." Each exchange sliced through me like a dagger. They mocked my intelligence, my hobbies, the way I spoke. Nothing was off limits. "At least you're fun," Paul had said to her. "Being with her is like living in slow motion." I closed the app, the screen fading to black, and stared at our family photos on the wall. Smiling faces frozen in time. The contrast between those happy images and the venom in their words was unbearable. The man I had shared 2 decades with, the father of my children, had become a stranger, a cruel, unrecognizable stranger. I've always had a nagging feeling that Paul might be unfaithful. But this? I couldn't have imagined this nightmare. A month ago, I found a thong in our bedroom that wasn't mine or Mary's. I ignored it, naively convincing myself it could somehow belong to our daughter, even though that made no sense. Now, I see it for what it was, a glaring red flag I chose to overlook. Paul's betrayal isn't just mine to bear. It's a double-edged sword that cuts through my son's heart too. The thought of telling Eric, of shattering his love for Amy with this vile truth, keeps me awake at night. How do I break my son's heart to save him from a deeper betrayal? As the days pass, I piece together more of Paul's dark secrets. He deletes his messages regularly, but patterns emerge. His behavior changed around the time Amy turned 18, 5 months ago. Was he waiting for her to become legal before pursuing this? The thought makes my skin crawl. Every discovery leaves me paralyzed. My mind races with questions. How did this happen? How did I let this happen? I feel like a fool, blind to what unfolded right under my nose. Eric adores Amy. The weight of revealing this to him feels insurmountable. My heart aches for my children, innocent bystanders in this grotesque drama. And yet, I know I can't stay silent. Paul's actions have set off a chain reaction, and the fallout is inevitable. I haven't confronted Paul yet. Fear grips me. What will happen when this house of cards comes crashing down? I don't know where to turn, but I'm sharing my story here, hoping for advice, understanding, or even just a moment of clarity in this storm. Thank you for listening. Your support means the world as I navigate this nightmare. I promise to keep you updated as I gather the strength to take the next steps. For now, I'm playing dumb, collecting every shred of evidence I can. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Then Eric. I sat down with Amy's mother and laid it all out. Every detail. Her reaction? She took Amy's phone immediately and handed over their entire chat log. But it only went back 3 months. The same as what I found on my husband's cloud. It was as if both of them had wiped their messages at the same time, a coordinated act of concealment. Amy's mother confronted her, and Amy broke down, tears streaming as she confessed, "You'll never understand. We're in love." The words were almost unbearable to hear. I won't delve into the specifics of everything Amy said, those words still echo in my mind, but it painted a picture of a vulnerable girl manipulated by someone who should have been a protector. Amy came from a fractured home, and Paul had meticulously positioned himself as her guide, her sage. Slowly, methodically, he convinced her he was someone she could trust, someone who understood her like no one else. And now, she was adamant their friendship had only recently turned physical, insisting it was platonic before. He was just a friend, she claimed. A mentor. I confronted Paul over Zoom. My heart pounded as I hit join, my hands trembling so much I struggled to steady the mouse. His face appeared on the screen, and in that instant, I knew this wasn't going to be a rational conversation. His appearance was disheveled, his hair a chaotic mess, his flushed face glistening with sweat, his eyes wild and restless. "Paul," I began, forcing my voice into a calm, steady tone, "we need to talk about what's been going on." Before I could continue, he cut me off, his voice loud and shaky, almost frantic. "Context. You don't understand the context," he spat out, repeating the word like a mantra but offering no explanation. His hands clutched a stack of papers, shaking visibly. "I've seen the messages, Paul." "Between you and Amy," I pressed on, trying to stay composed. I didn't want to provoke him further, but the truth had to come out. "None of that happened. You're making things up." His voice escalated into a roar, his face darkening into a deep, furious red. The sheer force of his denial was terrifying. "I have screenshots," I said, my voice faltering but firm. "We need to figure out how to handle this situation, especially with the kids." His fist slammed onto the desk, sending the camera into a jarring shake. "You have no right to take my kids away from me. You're trying to ruin everything." His words hit me like verbal blows, each one dripping with rage and venom. "Paul, you need to calm down," I said, though my own voice betrayed my fear. "I don't need to calm down," he shouted, leaning so close to the camera I could see the beads of sweat dripping down his temple. "You're the one destroying this family." His anger was a storm, unrelenting and terrifying. That was the moment I realized this was more than betrayal. This was a man unraveling, a man who posed a very real threat to me and my children. His words were slurred with fury, his eyes glinting with a dangerous edge. "I'm ending this call, Paul," I whispered, my voice barely audible over his shouting. "We'll talk when you're calm. You can't just hang up on me. You can't." His words cut off as I clicked the button, ending the call. My heart raced as I stared at the blank screen, a sense of dread settling over me. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore, it was about safety. Without hesitation, I called my lawyer, outlining every chilling detail of the call. We needed action, temporary custody, a restraining order, anything to protect my children and me from this escalating danger. I feel nothing but shame and heartbreak that they endured this in our home. Now, for the updates on Amy, because that's truly why I felt compelled to share this update. I wholeheartedly acknowledge that Amy is a victim in all of this. So many have pointed that out, and I couldn't agree more. I've done everything within my power to indirectly help her, to nudge her toward getting the support she desperately needs. I spoke to her mother, and she's kept me updated every step of the way. But Amy remains trapped in this delusion. She's locked in a warped reality, and all I can do is pray she finds her way out someday. She refuses to see doctors. She won't even consider speaking to a therapist. Instead, her focus is singular, Paul. In her mind, they're soulmates, destined for some impossible love story. From what I've been told, Paul has avoided her completely, cutting off communication. And yet, she blames me for this, accusing me of taking away his devices and trying to control him. Any truth her mother tries to share is met with hostility and wild conspiracy theories. In Amy's eyes, I'm the villain. I'm the jealous obstacle standing between her and her so-called love. She clings to this fantasy, even when her mother shows her undeniable proof, screenshots of his dating app profiles, clear evidence of his lies. But Amy won't believe it. She claims it's all photoshopped, fabricated to tear them apart. Her words cut deep. Everyone's just mad because I found a real man. You're just jealous because I take better care of him than you ever did. It's devastating. Paul's manipulation runs so deep that it feels like she's been programmed to defend him at all costs. The screenshots I have from their conversations reveal a lot, his constant complaints about what I didn't do for him, especially in intimate ways. And now, Amy parrots those same accusations, convinced that their bond is unbreakable. Here's the tragic truth: Paul is a predator. I'm almost certain his grooming began long before she turned 18. When Eric started dating her freshman year, Paul stepped in as this so-called mentor and friend. His influence was immediate and insidious. The way Amy acts now, her blind devotion, her willingness to defend him no matter what, it's the result of years of manipulation. She only turned 18 5 months ago, but her behavior suggests this didn't start recently. It's clear this was a slow, calculated process. The only hope lies in Amy realizing the truth for herself. If she could see her situation clearly, if she opened up about how and when this truly began, maybe there'd be a chance to hold him accountable. But she's 18 now, legally an adult, and determined to protect him at all costs. Without her cooperation or evidence of other victims, there's little anyone can do. I pray she comes to her senses. For now, though, intervening directly feels counterproductive. Maybe someday that will change.